Go 2.5. We're good.
All right, who invented fractions? Henry VIII. Years ago, the year was 1992. I was in my room at South High Junior High, the one that burned down. I did not burn it down. But I did start the fire. No, that's not true either. But I do love that song. And when I was there, the vice principal came in. And he leaned up against the wall and he said, "Brent, I just have to tell you, everyone thinks about quitting." And I thought, well, how did he know? I could not imagine, before I started that first year of work in the fall of 1991, what it would be like. The energy, the passion, the preparation, the time it took to prepare to be a good teacher. And then I coached 3 sports that year, and I was really exhausted. But guess what? I made a determination at that point that I need to do something. And that something was to find joy in what I was doing. And that made all the difference, because no matter what, sometimes between classes I'd sit down and I'd go, oh. And the students would start coming in, and I'd greet them at the door, and I would then put every ounce of energy in, and I found if I did that every day, every period, that made a difference. Finding joy in whatever you do in life is so important. Service is a part of what I am. It's a part of what I do. I learned it from my parents. I spent 12 years in the South Ogden City Council. I think the city's better off because of that service. I did my part. Now others are doing it as well. My time is up.
Well, I'm Rod Hall. I just want to take a moment and tell you real quick why I'm running. I said where because my wife and I. Why I'm running for Utah State School Board of Education.
We really prayed about that and determined that it would be something that we would do. So we kind of shelved it. And this opportunity opened up. I remember getting a phone call from Jamie Renda, who's in this room, and she told me about this opportunity that was open, and really encouraged me to run for the Utah State School Board of Education, and I said no. But I'd already said yes to God a year prior. And I was in New York City when I got a phone call from another person on the board that really just encouraged me to take a step of faith and follow the Lord in this. And we chose to do that, and we stepped out, and I promise you this, I know without a shadow of a doubt, as I stand before you today, that I'm supposed to be doing this, that God has called me to run for the Utah State School Board of Education. And as we move forward, I just want to champion parents to get involved, to get plugged in again in the hearts and lives of their kids, to be mobile and to be active. We want to also get behind teachers and support them any way that we possibly can. We also want to make sure that my top priority is to help protect the hearts and minds of Utah kids. As many of you know, there's been a lot that's made its way into our school system because of lack of parental involvement. Also because parents weren't involved in the level that they needed to be involved in the school system. And so there was no programs that were ever designed to be put in play in the Utah school system without the informed consent of parents. Because of that, we've got all types of things that are in there that are designed to tear down and not to build up, that are designed to break down the parent-child relationship and not to build that up. So with God's help and His strength, we're going to move forward and ask Him to do some great things on the Utah State School Board of Education.
I'm going to start with the first question, but I really want you as an audience to say, what pertinent questions do I have? But when you leave here, you would say, I absolutely would vote for this individual, or I absolutely would not. And I'm hoping that this type of format does exactly that. Instead of these guys going out and speaking to each one of you one at a time, similar issues time and time again, now we have a group of people, and you've got a chance to ask them pretty much any question there that they have a chance to respond as well. So, first question I've got, while the rest of you are thinking about, there's been a significant exodus from the K through 12 state school system. The best I can determine, whether it's right or wrong, there's almost 12% of the state of Utah kids that have opted with them and their parents to either go to charter or homeschool or whatever other option they've got as well. For many reasons are out. If the state school system has a deficiency in that system, what changes need to be implemented? Brett, can we start with you? You got 1 minute.
Teachers need support. They need to be treated like professionals because teachers are professionals. One of the things that I'm most proud of is several years ago, I worked diligently to provide opportunities for teachers to be treated like professionals with specific hours of paid professional leave that teachers are now enjoying. 32 hours of their choice. And this year, thanks to the legislature, another 10 million was added to that, which I figure is going to add another 4 hours of time where teachers are treated like professionals and given help. You talk to any teacher around, they will say that has been very positive for them. It replaces that what used to be the quality teaching time that we had. Let's start bringing that back. Let's continue that. I have other ideas on how we can make that even better. Thank you.
I know it's wonderful to do that. We'll kill some time. If we can wait to the end of class, I'd appreciate it very much. Go ahead.
So I believe if some things don't change quickly, we're going to see a mass exodus from the public school system. I'm very grateful for our teachers. I think we have amazing teachers all throughout the state of Utah. But I believe many of them have been restrained and muzzled through policies and standards that don't allow them to do what they really signed up to do, which is to teach the young people the subjects that they're most passionate about. And so we've allowed some things to creep into our school system that need to be pulled out. I think that people will stay there if there's not stuff like DEI in our school system that's being taught. If there aren't, some of these different ideologies that have woven their way into our system, I think that parents would be more willing to stay on board. If there's not sensitive materials in the schools they got to worry about, they'd be more willing to stay on board and stay plugged in with what's going on in the public school system.
Thank you. Questions? Yeah, a couple you forgot, didn't you? Put a stand and tell who you are and ask a question.
My name is Chuck Bickle. My question is, do you trust the caucus system? And if not, why not? And if so, why? And are you planning on gathering signatures?
Might as well. You got the mic. Yes.
All right. I do trust the caucus system. I believe it's a system that is by the people, for the people. I don't plan on gathering signatures. I wanted to go through the system that's set in place because I believe that gives the everyday person an opportunity to be able to choose the people that they want to represent them. So.
Yeah, I admire that sentiment. I've chosen to gather signatures. I think it's one of the most democratic things I've ever done. Over the course of the last 13 years, I have walked the streets of South Ogden and now other places because of my time serving on South Ogden City Council. Every 4 years, I've walked every street in town. It's impossible to do that with this one because that's, it'd be easier to walk to Los Angeles. But anyway, I do believe in the system. I'm doing both the convention. I want to respect that process. But I also realize that it's an opportunity for me to get out and meet the people. Very democratic.
Very good. Another question?
If elected or re-elected, what would your number one change be that you'd make?
My number one change would be to, like I said, champion parental involvement. And I don't mean like a little bit. I don't mean having principals send out a letter here and there. I mean a statewide campaign pleading for parents to get involved again in the lives of their kids and in our school system. I think there's so many checks and balances that we could put into play if the parents were involved. And that would be my very, very first push. And then I would encourage people to jump in behind that initiative to get parents involved again in the schools.
I agree. Family engagement is already a major thing school system. My wife is a Title I principal, and family engagement is absolutely essential to student success. Also, there's also programs, we have issues with behavior, and we have issues with attendance. It is rampant, both of those things. We need to have clear initiatives to assist our teachers in the classroom and our administrators with the tools they need to be successful for all these students who are missing so much school and behavior issues where entire classrooms are being ripped apart. We need to get past that. There are initiatives. I spent the summer with several representatives working on that very issue, and there was some minor legislation, but we need to keep moving forward with those changes.
Speak to that if you could. Let me just follow up one thing. Grant, you mentioned about discipline in the classroom. A lot of ways you go about it, but would you support a camera in the classroom like you did during COVID for both maintenance for the kids, because parents could obviously get in there, but also helping the system for what the teachers teaching as well?
That seems a little obtrusive. As a teacher of 30 years, yeah, I'm responsible for what goes on in my classroom. There's nothing to hide, so I guess on second thought that would be okay. But I think if I extended out the question, we need more assistance with students. For example, students who are habitually absent. We need systems in which we can help those students to regain their attendance. Every issue in society comes to school. And when society is struggling, schools struggle. That's why we need the support for teachers. And there are many things occurring in that direction. I would imagine more is going to occur this next summer as well. Thank you.
Same question.
Same question. I believe that God gave the mandate to parents to raise their kids. He said, train up a child in the way he should go when he's old and not depart from it. And when you drop your kid off at school, the teacher then becomes a steward of your child. And so for you to be able to check in and find out what's going on, I think there should be full transparency in the classroom. I think the biggest issue that we have right now is there's not enough transparency from the top to the bottom. And so I think it needs to be wide open all the way across. So I would support it.
Thank you. I saw a couple other hands.
Hi, my question is for Brent Strait. When the state central committee asked for repeal of R277328 regarding critical race theory, I was listening on your school board call, and when you stated that the SEC, somewhat I'm paraphrasing, so please correct me, that the SEC did not represent your party or the Republican Party when you were elected by delegates that are in this room. And just wondering what the reason for your no vote on the 328 was.
The no vote on what?
R277328 regarding the
I didn't
quality
vote.
score.
I didn't vote no. I guess I answered the question now.
Okay.
Okay. So R277328, there's several questions there. Hope I get it. If I don't, Troy, help me out. Okay. So, that's been a 3-year process. The first year, we had the initiative on critical race theory. That was a resolution, not binding, but the board treated it as binding and made the rule, 328. There was concern, it passed overwhelming with the board. We had turnover in the board the next year, not as friendly towards 328. But then we had new legislation. Jimenez had legislation, and we went back to our legal staff and said, do we need to update 328 as a result of the changes from 901? So the answer came back that even though there were several more items in relationship to critical race theory in Jimenez's bill, it was still included within it. So what happened from there was, the next year we get the DEI bill, and as soon as it switched from being what we considered to be a higher ed bill, then it felt more like, well, the amendment was made and it applied to K through 12. So we immediately sat down as board members and started working through that and saying, we want to get on top of this as best we can. My time's up.
Yeah, just wrap it up if you could on that piece.
Boy, that's really hard, because I didn't even get to the main part. But anyway, in regards to that, we definitely needed to update 328 as a result of the DEI bill. And even though we'd anticipated it would be higher ed, it was now in our lap. So we worked diligently to align with every effort. We spent massive amounts of time aligning with that new law before it even takes effect.
Can
So
you do
in
a
essence-
short wording
so
on
in
that?
essence- So in essence, R 277-328 is in alignment with House Bill 261. Did I get that right? 261? Okay, House Bill 261. It is in alignment, and it overwhelmingly passed through the board with a lot of other stuff that happened between.
So did you vote for it or against it?
I supported R 277-328 from the beginning and stayed with it, and I think we're in a good place with it.
Okay.
Can you explain what that bill is?
I am so sorry, because we have all this speak. We throw numbers out, and that's what we do when we talk about it, but I apologize because that makes no sense. So, 328 was originally the equity rule from USPE. Now, to explain this a little bit more, the legislature makes laws, we make rules. Sometimes those rules are separate from any law, but oftentimes they are in alignment. They are in alignment with the law. Our intent with 328 was to bring perfect alignment. 328 is the rule. It's by the board with House Bill 261. That is the law. So 328 and 261 are in alignment with each other. And I apologize for getting so technical.
And it is all DEI, is that correct?
Well, that's what they call, that's a short,
Okay, I think for clarification.
yeah.
Any other questions?
Do you agree with the censure of Natalie Klein?
Do you want to call this?
Yeah, you can all three.
I'll start first. First off, I want to say, Natalie Klein, I really like her as a person. She has done a lot of great things for the board. But I do want to say this, she made a mistake. And she knows that she made a mistake. And so as a result of that, there was some violation of code of conduct for the state school board. And so it was unanimously decided to censure her as a result of that. And now, really her fate is left in the hands of Utahns, and so the people get to vote and decide whether or not they want to keep Natalie Klein in Utah State Board of Education. But I don't think she's a bad person. I think Natalie Klein is a good person. It does break my heart when I think about what happened to the young lady. I'm really sorry that she got wrapped up in all of that. But I think that it'll work itself out.
So that's what ruined my Valentine's Day. Anyway, so we met on Valentine's Day to work through that issue. I feel bad for everyone involved. I believe everyone suffered in some way. I hate to think about any long-term effects for that young woman. Unfortunately, things like this have become too often a part of our dialogue. I can tell you, what is 1 less than 1? 0. That is how many transgender females are playing in sports this year. It's not occurring. And there have been several instances, though, where in the actual situation where they were playing, that a parent went and challenged the gender of a female athlete. That can't occur. We as
We need to catch you off there, appreciate it.
we as elected officials have a responsibility.
My name's Adam Mudd, so I have a little daughter who in the next few years will probably be involved in school. So I'm one of the statistics that Rod mentioned of people leaving the public school and considering homeschooling, considering that my wife is a stay-at-home mom. So if basically my direct question is this: you talk about transparency, getting parents involved, and what volunteer opportunities would be there for like my situation? Like my wife's a stay-at-home mother, and she wants to be very involved with our kids, obviously. And like I said, we're already pushing the homeschool route, but the public school systems are great. I want to know, I want to know directly, what are those opportunities for her to be involved voluntarily in every aspect?
So are you talking still with the schools if you chose to send them to school? Or are you talking what?
I'm saying if we chose, either way really, but definitely if we chose to have our kids in the public school system.
What can they do volunteer?
Yeah, how could my wife be involved, very, very, very wholeheartedly, almost like a full-time employee, but in the volunteer sense?
You got Mike? Go ahead.
Yes, sir, yes. There's probably a lot of folks that know some other things besides what I do, but PTA for sure. But then I went to my first community council meeting with my friend Donna the other day, and that was pretty powerful to be in there. I don't know if you've ever been to a community council meeting with parents and with the principal and with teachers, and just really getting to see the ins and outs of what goes on in that school, decisions made, finances.
Can you get just a little bit closer to your mouth when you speak?
Is that okay?
There you go.
Hear me okay? Okay. With finances, what's up next, all those different things. It was a great opportunity to be able to get involved, so I would really encourage that community council.
So this year, I made a commitment that I would visit as many community councils as I could. And I've attended probably 15 community councils in the last 2 months. And it is such a positive interaction with education. There's 2 levels to parents. There's parental involvement, and parental involvement is the first step to parental engagement. Engagement is much more deep. Engagement means a triangulation between parent, student, teacher, and the rest of the school staff and administration.
Be homeschooled or go to a charter school, but that $8,000 voucher doesn't go to public schools, and so public schools can't compete at the same level as the other schools, and it's kind of unfair because charter schools are also publicly funded. So Brent, how come charter schools can have that voucher and public schools don't get the voucher even though they're both getting funding? And just why is that? And then for Rod, how would you rectify that?
Okay, so I would have to go back through what you said because I'm not certain everything you mentioned was factual, so I'll answer as generally as I can. But in regards to the state board, we hire an administrator of that program. We're not directly involved. Let me speak to the side of that just a little bit. We have a demographic problem developing in Utah. And that demographic problem is we have shifting populations. Plus, the demographic problem is we have fewer first graders entering first grade that we have seniors, there's more seniors graduating from high school than entering the system. That's going to eventually catch up to us. But then we have populations growing very rapidly in other parts. How to deal with that with vouchers, charter schools, which are public schools, and our traditional public schools, that's going to be very difficult because the competition will cause some ebb and flow in our districts.
As I said earlier, I do believe that God has given the mandate to parents to decide how they want to educate and raise up their kids. So I don't think that one size fits all, one specific model fits all. So to give a parent an opportunity to be able to choose something else, I know parents that have a kid in homeschool, charter school, and in public school right now. And so those vouchers are designed to take, $8,000 for the student, but I believe still $5,000 goes to the public school system as well. So you're not taking all the money from the public school system, you're just taking some of that money and allowing the parent to invest it and use it the way that they see fit for the child.
Hi, my name's Scott Johnson. After the Natalie Kahn situation, would you both state your opinion? Does it do children any good to not acknowledge the difference between male and female, especially where it comes to sports? I'm 6'4", 270 pounds, and I'm sure there's high school kids my size, and all of a sudden one of them wants to say they're transgender. Should they play basketball against females? I just want your opinion on that. Do both of you acknowledge the difference between male and female?
Yes, 100%.
So there are no transgender females playing the sports.
That's not what he asked.
And what's that?
That's not what he asked. He asked you a specific question. Do you think there's a difference between men and women?
Oh, well, of course. Yeah, is that the whole question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
The question was, should obviously physically bigger and stronger person, all of a sudden they want to change their gender? There may not be right now, but should they be allowed to compete against females who are not even remotely of their same size and strength?
The law is clear that that is not to occur. I serve on the High School Activities Association, and they have the birth certificates, and that has to be provided. It is not allowed by law to have anyone play the other gender. At least, transgender females. Females can play the other direction, I believe.
While you're taking the next question, can I make a quick comment on something I didn't get a chance to earlier? Yes. On 328. So I just want to make this comment on 328. Some of the people from the board had a national expert come in on CRT and DEI and invited 7 members from the board to attend that. 5 came, and he basically said this, that 328 is filled with CRT, and that just when it came from the SCC, that it should be repealed, that this should be repealed. And so even though that was said, and they had backing from a national expert, still chose not to repeal 328 and allow it to continue in our schools, which would allow our teachers to continue to have to get training in DEI and all different types of stuff like that. And open the door for queer theory too as well, just so we understand that. So I know there's a new 328 for 2024, and it looks like to me in 328 that they can not promote it, but they can teach it.
We have 2 legislators here, and they've offered to do some clarification on a piece of that. Go ahead.
Sure.
So I don't support 3 of those, and I support parental rights.
Sure. So no, yes. And Brent, how about you?
So there's one form of social emotional learning. It's called transformative. That is not even allowed in our state. It is And so I do support social emotional learning, but not transformative. CRT is clearly defined by state law. I support the law. DEI, I support the law. Parental rights, absolutely. I talked about that in there. And you had a different question. I was writing down, what was your second question?
So my second question, because you're the incumbent, so I'm a big champion for parental rights, much like the gentleman back there. I have a daughter who is up for starting school this next year, and we're currently undecided on where she's going to go. And I was publicly educated in the state of Utah for my entire educational career, but I think it's a different world. I'm not that old, but my question for you, Brent, is can you give me a specific example, and I know you're on a board, where you voted for something specifically to champion parental rights?
Parental rights, something specific. Well, we always have elements of parental rights in almost every rule. The rule I talked about just a minute ago, which is R277217, sorry, I had to look at the number. But it has to do with standards, professional standards. Parents are very concerned about neutrality. And in regards to that, this is another one of the things that came about as a result of last summer's work with legislators. And it's in this rule. The educator shall not use the educator's position through instruction, materials, or symbols to actively endorse, promote, or discourage a particular partisan, religious, denominational, sectarian, agnostic, or atheistic belief or viewpoint in a manner inconsistent with the policy of the educator's LEA. Now, in addition to that, last week there was guidance sent out to all of our LEAs regarding transgender issues. And within that, we specifically state the rights of parents in regards to the materials of their students. Senate Bill 100, much the same thing. I support all of that.
So you voted for those things, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Corinne Johnson, and the state board does work very closely with the legislature, and you have an opportunity to work with them to pass legislation to make a difference for all the children in Utah. What legislation would you work on next session if you were our school board representative?
Probably some legislation that would, so if you look at R277-700, that was amended, it really took away rights of conscience, and it took away what I would believe to be religious rights. And I would want to see that changed almost immediately, because before, a student based on conscience could step away from a certain subject, or if something was in their school that they didn't want to be exposed to. Now they still can, but there has to be provisions put in place with the principal and administrators involved in teacher load, all this different stuff to make sure that they still fall in line to be able to meet the requirements for graduation. So that, to me, that was a violation of constitutional rights. I would want to see that fixed too.
As an educator, I've always felt, and it's been very clear to me from my administration, that we were to absolutely respect the rights of our students and their conscience. And that has always been the case. And I think it continues to be, and it should be. As far as something that I would want to accomplish, I actually have quite a few different things that I'm actually looking at. But one of the things I'd like to continue working on is continued professional development for teachers to be respected as professionals. And that is so important to giving the best teachers to every student. We want them well trained, we want them to be effective, and we want to give them the tools they need to do that.
Hi, Bruce Cooper. I'm a state delegate from East Layton area. And I'm wondering, do you guys, for each of you, do you think that there is porn in our school libraries? since you are the incumbent, how have you voted on anything that's come before the board with regard to that?
So I know for sure that there are sensitive materials in our schools. I follow some of our local groups that have been involved in helping kind of sniff some of that stuff out. But we definitely need to have some legislation. We did some things this last session, I think, that were good, but it just needs some more teeth to be able to pull that stuff out of our schools. So we definitely need to keep pushing forward with legislation to make sure that we can root that stuff out of our schools. It's there. I don't think it's not. It's there.
So as I look back over time, probably one of the mistakes that we made as a board is getting the guidance for sensitive materials out to the districts in the time that they needed it. The fact that we worked so diligently in this last session to update R277328, the equity rule, equal opportunity, educational opportunity rule, we did that because we didn't want to put ourselves in the same situation as the sensitive materials. As I observed the local districts that I serve, Weber and Davis, I was very impressed with their efforts to deal with these sensitive materials. They were diligent in putting out the policy and enacting on the policy. And boy, I don't know if they could, the only thing that would have helped is if we could have gotten our model policy sooner so they could have reacted quicker.
My question is directed at both of you. It might seem like I'm directing more towards Brad, but it's both of you. What would you say to parents that right now feel that the education system is broken and may feel resentful when they hear that one of the solutions to fixing the problem is giving the same teachers more benefits or more hours off? And also, this would be directed at Brent, may hear of your education experience and think, well, the education system isn't doing very well. They might resent that you present that as something good.
I would say that it's not too late to fix it. I would say that parents are the answer. And involvement from parents, and I know I've already said this, but on a level that I don't hope everybody knows where I'm coming from my heart. Like, it's going to have to be a revival parental involvement in our schools. To the point where I've got some Utah State law, and if I get a chance, I'll read that, where it talks about parents being on the school site. I think that there's really no, Brent was talking about these things that are into the school and really not having passed on that policy. Well, there's really no oversight when it comes to the county school board, when it comes to what's going on in our schools as far as curriculum goes. There's some standards that are put in place by the state school board, but they're so loose that and passed down that we want to have autonomy in districts. I understand all that, but it's a wide open gate for things to get in, and it should not be like that. So I think parental involvement is the key. I don't think we can turn the ship around unless we have a revival of parental involvement in our school systems. I think we have to play the long game on that. I don't think it can be changed overnight. I think these seeds have been planted and watered, and the fruit's coming up, and this room is full of people because they're sick of it. They don't want to see that anymore. So I think it changes over time, but we have to elect people that care about this country, that love our kids. We have to care about people that want to stand up for truth and right. I'm not talking about just some relative truth, but I'm talking about absolute truth. We have to elect people that believe what God's laid out. This country was founded on truth. And so there has to be a standard of truth, and it's God's truth. We need to make sure we elect people that believe that.
I think I couldn't hear what your last question was.
Can you clarify?
How do you fix the relationship between parents who feel resentful towards teachers and the track record that's currently presented?
Okay, so I'll start with that and then work backwards. So how do we repair it? Well, we talked about family engagement. We talked about families becoming involved and then becoming engaged. I think that's the key. that deeper engagement where everyone is supporting and collaborating with each other. In regards to schools, if I relied strictly on board meetings, the board meetings I attend, to have my view of education, it would be very bleak. I must admit that there are times I have to get to a school. I have to. And the reason I do is because it re-energizes me, it builds me up, I see the positive things going on in those schools. The longer I stay out of the schools, if I'm not visiting schools, I get a warped view of what's going on. I go to lunch with my high school friends and take lunch from Tony so that we can talk about education so that I can get a feel of what's happening in school. So that is so vital. We need all of you involved. We need everyone, including myself, or I get negative. So I've got to have that positive feel that comes from visiting those schools.
Okay, hi, I'm Becky Heaton, and I teach in the Exercise and Nutrition Science Department at Weber State. And I've been teaching there for 13 years now, and I've noticed a change over the course of the 13 years, and I have students, particularly in, I'd say, the last 4 or 5 years, that don't have the ability to do basic math problems, finding a percent in college, and as well sticking to deadlines and realizing that you know, the syllabus is their contract, and this is how it runs. It's not all due at the end of the semester. So my question is, how did we get to this point? I can't imagine that COVID could explain all of it. And as well as the focus changed on what we consider a success for a student to be able to graduate, what has changed?
I believe that it's been very slow. I talked about the seeds being planted over time. I think that we've introduced more indoctrination into schools rather than educating. More fluff, more things that are fun, and more electives rather than educating. If you look at between 10th and 12th grade across the state, this last year's proficiency scores, it was 13%. 13% proficiency. And so we work with young people that are graduating from high school into the college and career arena, and some of them don't know how to do simple math. There's a big gap. Something's missing, something's wrong. This is what I want to say. If you continue to do what you've always done, you'll be what you've always been. And so if we continue to go this direction, it won't just stay this way, it'll get worse. So something has to change. It has to change.
Well, having been right in the center of looking at these things, in fact, we are currently looking at math standards. We are looking for the best solutions and the best way to influence. The most difficult thing to do as a member of the board is to get something from policy, which is way up here, all the way down to practice, what's happening in the classroom. So we know that things are occurring somewhere along here. We have to use our best research tools to understand what's going on and why. And sometimes it is not the school, sometimes it's not the teacher, sometimes there's other factors. We have to root out those factors and figure out what's going on with our students in order to be able to manage. But you're right. I'm up here in this ivory tower with the policy. We make lots of policy, and we're trying to affect what's happening down here. And we want that to improve. Absolutely. We've got to get to that.
It seems like it was better off 10 years ago than it is now. So something has changed.
Right. And
Good to go on to another question. So it could be argued that standards are probably the most important thing the school board member votes on. What's an example of a standard that's written well and also a standard that needs changing, and your recommendations with those standards?
I'm going to give this to Brent because he's really familiar with the standards there.
And I was letting my mind rest. So, we talk a lot about local control. And we talked about the relationship between the state board with the legislature and the state board with the districts. So when we set a standard, we're setting what it is that we want students to be able to do. Then the districts take that and they make curriculum. And there's a lot of autonomy now between the district and the individual teacher. Each teacher has a responsibility to deal with that. As far as one of the standards, one of the things I think we need to think about is, what do we want our students to be able to do or to become in order to show that they are prepared for everything that's happening in society? Okay, I'm running out of time real quick. The standards are constantly under review. So, and it's a 25-month process. It takes 25 months, step by step, to take from the beginning of setting standards till the end of the standard. Between that, we bring in the best, brightest minds that we can. For example, we have one of those individuals who serves in that in this room.
So, as far as standards are concerned, you know, it takes, anytime you to change a standard, it takes the majority on the board to do that. There's 15 board members. There's no doubt that standards need to be beefed up. They need to be reined in so that when they're passed down to these local districts, they can't just insert whatever curriculum they want to. They've got to stay within the law, stay within those standards, and not go off the rails. But you need a majority to be able to do that on the board. So, like I said again, there's 7 seats that are open on the board, and I don't say this. I just want to make this point. We need to vote people in that are going to stand for truth and that are going to stand for right. That's very, very important.
My name's Brian. I'm a state rep, retired educator with a bachelor's degree, and I know Brian. I've worked in the same district, but this is what I'm seeing because I have 3 of my children as teachers. My wife was a teacher, and I never saw support from administrators or teachers. Never. They were all, in all my career, I had 2 good principals that cared about the school they worked in. All the rest of them cared about their career. Sound like a politician? They are. I taught history, government law, economics, and history, they would give us the guidance from the state, what we had to teach. In about 90 days, right? It was this thick. Probably had over 500 lesson plans. You can't teach 500 lesson plans in 90 days. So my concern is that there's so many levels that nothing ever gets done. There's, I mean, I gotta give you this example because it drives me nuts. When COVID came and the lawsuits started to happen in Davis County School District, you all know about them, the racial problems, which were there, I'm not gonna deny that. But principals went back to their schools and they told the teachers, if I was you, I wouldn't teach anything. Nothing. And the teachers went, what are you talking about? They said, the district, if you say one little thing, like the wrong pronoun, you're fired. The district will not back you up. And so I can tell you, last couple of years, I've talked to a lot of teachers in Davis County School District, and they all want to quit. They can't stand it. The 2 main board members in Davis County are not running this year because they ruined Davis County. And they have been there for years.
So do we have a question? I appreciate.
So the question is, in 30 years of teaching, I never did one thing the State Board of Education said. Okay? Because then it came down to the local level, and they said something else, and then it came down to the principal, and they said something else, and the only thing you can do as an educator is function on your own and try to survive. So my question is, why hasn't there ever been support in education and everything's blamed on the teacher, when really, there's nothing there supporting a teacher.
So I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But I do want to say this, that I think it's so important that we understand that there's no transparency, there's no accountability, no one holding the lower level accountable. We need to simplify education. This is ridiculous. You got all these steps, but it has to be simplified and let teachers teach. One of the things I love about teaching in the Christian school that I taught in is I got to develop my own lesson plans, you know what I mean? And put those together to make sure that the kids got the material they needed to get by the end of the year. And guess what, they did. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
I have to admit, your playbook from Weber State,
I'm sorry, what?
your playbook from Weber State when you played at Weber State.
Well, and I taught with you, so.
Well, I had your room. Anyway, I didn't do anything with it. It's still in the closet. You'll have to check with the other teacher.
2 years at BYU, 2 years at Weber, and my master's at Utah State.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, once again, and I acknowledge, how do I get from policy way up here down to practice? And it's tough. So that's why I focus so much on providing resources, providing assistance to the districts that are focused on teachers. And I think that, and you remember the old quality teaching days and how effective those were in preparing for the year, and then they all disappeared. That was tragic that disappeared. We've made some headway in bringing that back. We need to keep making more headway. It needs to get back to where it was, because we are professionals and we need to be treated that way.
My kids went to school with Mr. Gladwell as teacher in Bonneville, and I attest that what he says is right. He didn't follow very many rules, so. Trey, you're up.
My kids love my class, too.
In Florida, they have an incentive program for teachers. They figure out how they're doing and they pay them according to their statistics. If the teacher thinks you're going to make more money, they'll figure out a way to have the whole class learn. What about incentive programs? Give them more money. Give the good teachers more money and then fire the bad ones. And also, part of this curricular race theory, they have to sign a contract in Florida that they will not teach that or the three things that you were talking about. And if they're caught doing it, they fire them. And there's zero tolerance for that in Florida. That's probably because of the DeSantis. If we have anything like that, I mean, they should be able to teach that. If they do, they can be fired.
So this goes right up my alley. We have two questions there. I'll try. So the first question is about incentivizing teachers. Now, there's something about, especially at the grade school level, where you call all the teachers who teach third grade, we call them a team. All the teachers who teach fifth grade are a team. Incentive programs can cut into that team. And that is very concerning to me. Now, do we need ways for teachers to improve their practice, their pedagogy, to be better practitioners of their art? Absolutely. And that's where we talk about the professional time we provide teachers. That's where we talk about teachers working together. That's one of the areas which I'm actually going to be looking at this summer, is to look at all the incentive programs. That process has already started. We've looked at the incentive programs we have and looking at how we can use that to be more productive. As far as critical race theory goes, we have policies in place, and the legislature is clearly defined. 261 clearly defines what that would be, and we absolutely support those items.
Can I follow up?
I wish that was true. I'm not saying it right on your life, but I just don't know that you know that there's still that in the school. So at this point in time, teachers can't promote it, but they can still teach those things. Whenever you see the word equity, or you see inclusive, how many parents have heard those words and seen them in letters home from This is DEI, which is another form of critical race theory. Just so you know, anytime you decide to divide by race, or you decide to elevate one over the other, this is critical race theory. So these things are still heavily in our schools. As far as incentivizing teachers, but I think we need to do whatever we can to back up and support teachers. I think they've had a hard road, and we said that every time we do these meet and greets, they have teachers come up to our booth and just pour their hearts out. They're tired, they're wore out, their workload is ridiculous. Many of them are quitting. We have a super high turnover rate of teachers here in the state of Utah because they don't want to put up with the stuff that's going on. So we definitely need to figure out a solution to that.
My name is Wayne Sorensen. I'm a state rep in the East Lake area. I'm father of 11 children also. I have so many questions going through my head, I can't even really formulate one. Obviously, there's a lot of people upset about the current direction of education. I've heard a lot of defense of what's been happening. What will you do to make a difference, to change the direction that things are going, not defend what's been going on? Because people are unhappy. And do you think, I guess it's a multifaceted question, do you think it's time for change in the upper leadership? And do you think that we're too heavy in bureaucracy?
Two questions. Yep, you're good.
So, as a husband of a elementary principal, Title I school, I can tell you that there's not too much support. Administrators give support to the teachers. Teachers give the support to the students. And it is hard work. And we need to really respect the rights of everyone. We beg, we must have involvement and engagement by parents. And if you want to get a different perspective on schools, go to a school. Because then you'll see what it's like, and you'll gain a love and respect for the effort and the work that educators do in order to help our children become the best they can possibly be. There is so much good out there, so much good. And there is more good than bad. Don't get so involved politically in my line. Get involved in the school itself. Community council, PTA, other things like that.
So once again, we are encouraging strong parental involvement. And I think in Utah, like the dream that God's given me about this is it can happen here. This is a state that we promote families and we promote being involved and plugged in with our kids, but I think many of us have gotten busy and things have taken that place. I want a statewide initiative to beg parents, plead with parents to get involved in the lives of their kids and in their schools again. It has to happen. This won't change without it. I promise you guys, this won't change without it. We'll continue down the C talk about bureaucracy. We'll continue down the same road. There's too many people with their hands in the pot, and parents need to step back in on the forefront and make sure that we're doing our part in schools.
This will be the last question we have. We're going to start at 8, and so we know it's going to be the best question of the night, right?
That's right.
There you go. Give it a shot.
In most high schools that I know of, there is a class that the students get to study. And they're supposed to be studying, but I've heard that a lot of it is just goofing around, and the kids that are studying to get their grades up or to graduate because they're behind can't do anything because there's too much other stuff going on in the classroom. What would be your idea of making some rules to make sure that there's more incentives in those classrooms to have students actually study instead of goofing off and just getting a P or whatever it is so they can pass the class. I mean, it's not an A or B class as far as I know. It's more of a pass or fail. And then.
Can you clarify though, does that mean they've got one full period just for,
Yeah,
supposed to be
an
studying?
hour and a half, they can do whatever they want, and then the second part is, I've had a lot of hard time getting into my child's classroom to actually see what's going on into the classroom, because they lock the door on the outside, and I understand that's for safety because of all the shootings and everything going on, but why can't I get in to actually see what's going on in my child's classroom if I am the parent?
I think what you're going to find out, parents, because I'm going to challenge you to get involved. This is on purpose. You're going to find out it's way harder than you thought. When you go to ask your school about SEL, you're going to find out it's way harder to find out what's being taught there in SEL than you could have ever imagined. And so what's going to happen? You're going to be informed. You're going to realize it's very hard to be informed. And so as parents, I hope that it calls us to want to step up and stand up and actually do some things that affect change, respectfully and lovingly, graciously, but boldly stand up for what is right in these areas. So it sounds like to me they're having recess. Amen? Right? I mean, a whole free period to do whatever they want to do. And that to me, that seems like oversight in the classroom that teacher needs to probably rein some of that in and have some more structured things in that class.
At Bonneville High School, where I worked my last 20 years, I saw different variations of this. Some were more effective than others. Some were not effective as they should be. But the one I saw that worked well was when we actually followed a group of students from their sophomore to their junior, from their junior to senior through graduation. That's when I had the most satisfaction as a teacher, because I had the same group of kids all the way through, and it felt like an accomplishment together when graduation occurred. They've always had some form of this. Sometimes it's called advisory. We call it Laker time. There's always been different forms of it. As far as effectiveness, yeah, there's varying degrees. But a lot of the push for some of these programs came from parents. And so that's good. We need a time for students to be able to work and get assistance. Many of them, especially our athletes, are busy, and they don't have other time before or after school really to get the help they need. So it's very helpful for many athletes, which I support.
Thank you. Either one of you are going to take, both of you will take 1 minute, just one last minute to say why these delegates ought to vote for you.
I have the time, I have the passion, I have the energy to do this job. I've done an excellent job. I've done my part. Plus, my wife says if I don't win, I have to go back to work. This actually is work. I have 3 days this week, 3 days next week, where I will need to go to the business of the board. I do that with joy. I do that with satisfaction. And I do want to say one very last thing, and that is this. There's been reference to R277328 and its relationship to critical race theory. I can stand before you and tell you we did everything in our power as a board to make it a useful and effective document and to increase the value of our children's education through it. I have a copy. If you can show me where there's critical race theory, I'll gladly accept it. But I can tell you, it's not there. Every effort was made to do that.
Well, I know we've talked about a lot of hard things tonight, but I do want to try to encourage you. I wouldn't be standing up here if I didn't think that God could turn this whole thing around. And so I want to challenge you and encourage you to vote for people that you know are going to stand for right and truth. And listen, get the word out statewide, because there's 7 positions open that are being run for on this board. And I want to say this, not everybody on the board is doing wrong. We have a great crew of people on the Utah State School Board of Education that are standing for good and they're standing for right, and they want the best thing for your kids, but there has to be a majority to see this thing turn in the right direction. So pray that in. I do want to say this, would you guys go look up James Lindsay on SEL, look up James Lindsay on critical race theory, and educate yourself, parents. Dive in and educate yourself on these issues so that you know when somebody's trying to put it in front of your face and get it under your nose, using different wording, but it's all the same thing, okay? So, and anybody who would like for me to, I will send you a video that was given to the board by another board member that breaks down 328 so that you can see critical race theory in there, okay? Thanks.
We very much appreciate it. You need to remember, these guys will put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of their own money, and they'll sacrifice time with their families and other things they're doing to stand up and go through this process. So again, regardless if you're going to vote for them or not, we truly need to appreciate someone to stand up and do exactly that. I'm positive both will be here as long as they'd like to answer questions, but I'd also ask you this. If we can help and assist on picking up the chairs, is that okay with you? There you go. Figure to make the burden light. Grab your chair if you could. Let's stack them back. Thank you for coming.